Hi everyone, I hope this finds you in good health. Welcome to Emunah Until the Sunset. In these emails, I try to focus on ideas of Emunah in the Parshiot, the portions we read from the Torah. Emunah, generally translated as faith, is more accurately described as the acceptance that God is involved in every minute detail of our lives. This week's Parsha is Shelach. This week, Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, ask Moses, if they can send spies into Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, before they enter it. God hadn't commanded them to do this, but they were nervous and wanted to scout the land themselves. Moshe tells the Meraglim, the spies, specifically to travel from the south of Israel to the north. Why does this matter? If you've ever traveled in Israel, you know that the south is still largely unsettled. It's dry, hot, and colorless. But the north of Israel? It's verdant, settled, and beautiful. The Midrash tells us that to have the Meraglim start in the least appealing part of the land and then work their way to the most beautiful part is the way of merchants, to show their inferior goods first and then afterwards show their prize offerings. Moshe didn't want the spies coming back with a negative report on the land, which would lower the morale of the people, so he hoped saving the best for last would ensure this. Unfortunately, 10 of the 12 spies still return with a negative report anyway. Before they leave, Moshe instructs the Meraglim, the spies, to strengthen themselves and take from the fruit of the land, implying that the fruit should be taken for themselves by eating it. 10 of the 12 spies went above this command, not only taking for themselves, but also bringing fruit back to show the people. This fruit, because it was from Eretz Yisrael, divinely, was huge. 8 men carried a cluster of watermelon-sized grapes on a bed of poles. Another carried a huge pomegranate, and another carried a huge fig. The 10 who carried the fruit were doing so to show that the land was abnormal and dangerous, and was inhabited by giants who ate such large fruit. Caleb and Yehoshua, Caleb and Joshua, were the only of the Meraglim who didn't bring back fruit, because they didn't want to promote this fear in the people. They didn't go above their command of just taking fruit for themselves. This idea of giants really freaks out Bnei Yisrael, but it's one thing to come back and say, we saw giants, and a whole other thing to say, we saw the giants. In our eyes, we seemed like grasshoppers, and so we were in their eyes. This means we felt little and weak, so they saw us as little and weak. No one asked the giants what they thought. They decided that the giants saw them as little because they felt little. And no one asked the spies to tell how they felt when they saw the giants. They asked for a factual report. This is unnecessary. They just willed their poor self-image into the minds of those who saw them. My very first class in college was a sociology course. I remember that first Monday walking in and seeing this crowded classroom. Everyone else looked so much more confident and comfortable than I felt, so I thought that they for sure were all in their second or third year of college. For the rest of the semester, nothing more told me otherwise. The next year, I saw those same students walking around campus, and then the next year, and then the next. I was confused. Shouldn't they have all graduated by now? It didn't hit me until I was sitting at my own graduation and saw almost all of these students in that class walk across the stage to accept their diplomas, the same stage that I had just walked across. That first day in class, those students had also been freshmen. In my own nervousness and insecurity, I projected security and confidence on them. I saw myself as a puny freshman, so I was one. I saw them as confident upperclassmen, and so they were. We are who we say we are. Like the Meraglim willed themselves to feel inferior, so did I. Did the students around me purposefully act confident so that I would feel bad? Of course not. They were probably also nervous. The only person who had control over how I felt was me, and me alone. So then the spies tell the people that the land swallows its people. They said this because everywhere they went, they saw funerals happening. But it was all a misunderstanding. There's one explanation that Hashem had caused many people who were supposed to die at the same time, so that those who dwelled in the land would be busy with their funeral prep and not notice these spies checking out the land. Another explanation is that the Canaanites of that day had an interesting burial custom. They would store the bodies of their normal dead until a prominent person died, because they knew for sure that that specific person would go to quote-unquote heaven, and therefore would bring with them all of those who were being buried that day. Again, a misunderstanding. Rashi, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, the essential Torah commentator, comments that Moshe asks the spies if there are trees in the land or not. But this doesn't just refer to actual trees with trunks. Moshe is asking if there are righteous people out in the land. But illogically, Moshe doesn't tell the Meraglim to look for the righteous people in B'tei Knesset, synagogues, or B'tei Midrash, houses of study. He tells them to look out in the fields. This teaches us that a true tzaddik, a righteous person, is someone who is like a tree, out among the people producing fruit or deeds. But all this begs the question, why were the spies so intent on keeping Bnei Yisrael out of Eretz Yisrael? Bnei Yisrael enjoyed their divine existence in the desert. They ate only manna, that fell miraculously every morning. They were guided by a pillar of fire at night. They drank water from Miriam's well. They had just been escorted across the floor of the Yam Suf, the Sea of Reeds, or the Red Sea, among many other divine examples. The spies were in no hurry to descend the mundane of life in Eretz Yisrael. They felt most connected to God in the wilderness, thinking that there would be no godly connection once they arrived in the material world. This isn't totally correct, though. Holiness is also in the mundane, because that is where we spend most of our lives. As Rashi comments above, a truly holy person is out in the world doing good deeds, not just keeping their righteousness to themselves. Bnei Yisrael would have found godliness even in their day-to-day lives. None of us can live 100% holy lives, but we can infuse our lives with the holy. And who has control over that? We do. We have the power to make everything we do holy, whether it's saying a bracha, a blessing over the food we eat, or performing mitzvot, deeds or commandments, or striving to be a Kiddush Hashem, a sanctification of God's name in the wider world. The Meraglim were wise elders chosen from each of the tribes, aside from the tribe of Levi, so it's not like these were some young punks who wanted to scare the people. The Meraglim weren't evil, they just lacked Emunah. Kalev and Yehoshua, though, believed that Hashem wouldn't have brought them there only to die, and knew that even if the land was terrifying, they would settle it and be successful. So all of this returns, of course, to Emunah. As much as we think we know what is best for us, and as much as we have free choice, we don't have all the information. So how do we find this balance? We try to live a life that is a mixture of believing in the gifts we know we possess, gifts that were divinely bestowed upon us, and a mixture of recognizing that we will always be where we're meant to be. This allows the confidence necessary to go through life successfully. Shabbat Shalom. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you so much for listening.